Hello, and welcome back to the Construct Cast. My name is James Darian, and honestly, I'm getting a little tired of feeling all this pressure that I need to only make very political content. So I think I'm going to start to diversify a bit. That all said, welcome to all of you coming here. I am happy to be able to host this show for you guys as often as possible. And today, we will be talking about fascism. All right, before we get into it, make sure that you hit that like button, subscribe to follow for more. If you like this content, you know we gotta do it at the start of every video. Probably the end too. But let's hop into it. All right, now I know I said that I'm tired of making everything political, but this conversation is actually very much related to that. So one of the big issues with the way a lot of people see fascism these days, whenever I hear people talk about it, I feel like there is this conflict with with their belief of what it is and what the solution is. When I hear conservatives talk about it, they tend to bring up the Italian definition of fascism being the perfect union of state and government. And then on the other side of things, you have liberals who see it as just being this strong nationalist movement. And I feel like both are kind of missing part of the point. Okay, you all have part of a view, but no one's got the full thing. I do take issue a bit with the way conservatives view it, purely for the fact that they tend to end up celebrating things that end up kind of promoting fascism, and both sides kind of do based on the conservative definition. So what do I mean by that? Well, first off, the left wants to regulate everything. That's, in the simplest of terms, that is kind of the whole point of it. Socialism, and I mean, I get, yes, communism, but not communism, depending on how you define it. If you go with the Marx, like, utopian communists, then no, in that type of communism, there is no government. It's anarcho-communism. But in the state communism, then its government controls everything. It's just kind of more propagandized socialism, like 100% socialism, I guess, where the government literally has a vested interest in every business. If you look at China, for example, while they've given up some of their communistic tendencies, and the government isn't making all the choices for business, every business in China needs to have a massive department that's basically a Chinese government department, or a department that's dedicated to, like, making sure the business is running in line with the wishes of the Communist Party. Stuff like that. So I take issue because there's a lot of things that we do that actually scares me. And people say it's like, people tend to say it's pushing towards socialism, but this is really more fascistic in a lot of ways. And it's kind of like a sliding scale from one to the next, because communism is seen as basically using that perfect union of state and business. It's basically, it really is in many ways a nationalistic corporatist view of markets. So if I had to put it on a scale somewhere, if we're heading towards communism, which is the more the state communism, where state controls everything, makes sure everything's distributed equally, yada yada yada, then if you're following a path to that from capitalism, then you go from capitalism to, or free markets, to I guess, regulated markets, and there's an amount of regulation where you can say, is any amount of regulation fascism? Because it's government influencing the economy, influencing markets, influencing industries, and you have to ask, all right, so is fascism just a perfectized version of that? Maybe, but it almost seems like it's a scale, it's a slide, where fascism is, while it is specifically that perfect union, and it does have those nationalistic tendencies. Like, if you're looking at it just from an economic standpoint, fascism is basically everything from mixed market to like socialism, where government's starting to own businesses and control them. Whereas in fascism, it's more like partnerships, which gets me to the things that I always wondered why Antifa didn't complain about this, and I know it's because they want the government to own and control businesses, like, outright. They don't want private ownership, whereas fascism technically still allows private ownership of stuff. But the clear sign that then the clear argument that anyone could make towards Donald Trump is a fascist, for example, would be to look at Donald Trump during the pandemic crisis, specifically during the beginning of it, because he did end up changing his tune, though I think it was way too late. But during the beginning, Defense Production Act. So he took something that makes us a command economy, an act that makes us a command economy, designed specifically for wartime purposes, though in writing it's based around emergencies, national emergencies. So now it has been brought from being just used for wars to now, okay, health emergency, pandemic being a health emergency. So from that kind of health emergency, well, we have a flu every year. Oops. Now maybe we need to activate a little sooner to make sure all those flu vaccines get out, among other ones, and then, maybe it doesn't have to be a health emergency. Maybe it just needs to be an emergency. We have too many drugs. Drug war. We got to get these streets cleaned up. Lots of car accidents these days. We're having issues with batteries too. So we're going to need to get involved in that. It's a sliding slope. Slippery slope, sliding scale. Got those two mixed up. Anyhow, this is a big worry of mine, because I see when this happened, there was almost an echo of silence on it, and even celebration from both sides, and that kind of scares me. Like, I get that people want to feel like the government's doing something for them, especially helping them in a time of emergency, and there is an amount of benefit that can be gained from being able to have a uniform order across the land that says, hey, we need this. If you can produce this, produce this. There is a natural benefit to it, though I find it to be in contrast to advocates of liberty and sorry, my allergies are terrible these days, but I find it to be complete contrast to pursuits of liberty, and that's kind of just like the tip of the iceberg, because beyond that, and this is the one that really actually kind of scared me, was during the early days of the pandemic, Donald Trump would give all these press conferences, and some people would moan and bemoan them, like, oh, I gotta listen to the president, and then other people would be like, yeah, president's speaking, yeah, whatever, who cares? But we've got the issue of, well, Donald Trump is getting up on stage, and he is just listing off one company after another that he handpicked as doing a good job. That he handpicked as saying, oh, they've been a great help to us. Look at how good this company is. And that may be true. That may be very true. But is it not a problem that every single company listed by the president that's getting a personal shout out from the president himself? Is it not a problem that that's essentially free marketing to tens of millions of people who just so happen to be listening to it because everyone was listening to the president's speeches back then? Even people who didn't like or were just kind of like about Trump were listening to him back then. That's why the media ended up, not airing them eventually. But there was a while when any channel you went on, you would hear, "Oh, Pfizer, Walmart's done a great job. I don't know if he's Kmart, CVS, Walgreens, yada 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 yada," and the list goes on. And it's kind of freaky that would happen, because it's very corporatist, and it was celebrated on the right in a lot of ways, saying, "Oh, Donald Trump's giving credit to the free market." Just like, no, actually, that's not credit to the free market. That's credit to specific actors in the market. And if the government's, it's almost an endorsement. And if the government's giving endorsements, can you really say that the market's free? Can you say that everyone's competing on a level playing field if the government is promoting specific people? And I've heard this argument made by Sticks, Hex, and Hammer before, so I want to give him a shout out and credit for bringing this up, though I didn't really think about that until just a second. He has brought up the fact that by YouTube specifically promoting content, he is by default, even without putting anything negative on his content, it is demoting his content, because there's someone who might be below him. Because they're getting that promotion, they're going to be above. So it puts him farther down in line. And when you have companies getting shout-outs from the government, it's doing the same thing. Maybe there's other companies that those guys are competing with. Uh-oh. All the Trump fans now hear that they're so good. All the people who were just like listening to Trump being like, "Well, I don't like Trump, but yeah, no, it's good that he, like, I didn't know these companies were doing good things. That's good." So now, now they have a bit of an extra edge, an extra advantage. That scares me. And I think if you really want to look at what perfect fascism is, I think perfect fascism would be the fascism you don't know you live under. It would be the fascism that either you don't know or that you celebrate. It would be the government cohabitation with business that everyone kind of knows and to an extent acknowledges, but they don't really imagine it as fascism. For example, there is a massive revolving door, and people talk about this. People don't really talk about it, but they kind of like, it seems like people realize it in the back of their mind. There's a massive revolving door between politicians and the media, which, like, when you get into you can use the media to get recognition and use that recognition to get elected into office. And if you ever leave office, well, you can become a contributor on these networks. If you were already a contributor on the network and then you get into office, well, now you've got a hand-in-hand relationship with them. That network is a propaganda office now, because you are a political actor and they are giving voice to what you are saying, which there needs to be an amount of politicians able to speak on these networks. That is necessary. We want as many people to hear politicians as possible, but it's a problem when networks are either just paying or having like set contributors or just making deals to get individualized politicians on their network. When it's not just, oh, we just happen to be getting this interview. When it is, oh, we have a partnership with this person, that's a problem. When those people leave politics and they get jobs being a political contributor on these networks, that's a problem. That's a really big problem. Trey Gowdy on Fox, for example, he's hosted plenty of shows He's been a contributor, but now he's hosting many shows after he left DC. I see stuff like that as a massive issue, and I know the other networks do it too. I throw Fox under the bus because it's the one I've seen the most of because my parents have it on all the time. But I feel like a lot of conservatives who are, let's face it, they're going to be my primary audience, probably put on Fox a lot. Even though they had a whole falling out after the election, in general, a lot have gone back. So, or they'll trust people like individual hosts like Tucker Carlson or Hannity or something. Like they'll have their, or Greg Gutfeld, they'll have their Fox guy a lot of the times. And I'm not gonna lie, there is so much that they can do with that. It's a lot of power for Fox. It's a lot of power for Fox. And going to other industries, we also have the amount of lobbying we have, first off, is absurd. We have, in many industries, the biggest actors in those industries are the ones who regulate them. I mean, can you start your own credit card company, a credit running company, without the support of MasterCard and Visa? The credit companies are regulated by organizations that are headed by like people who work for or on the boards for Visa, MasterCard, it's not American Express. Yes, whatever, American Express. I don't have that one. But you've got all that going on. For something I know, video game industry, it's run by the ESRB. ESRB is self-regulation by people from those companies, but it's a government that gives these organizations their power. That's my issue with it. I don't care if these organizations end up coming through of their own volition, but it's the fact that they're given enhanced capabilities by the government that you can't even enter a market without getting the approval of these organizations. That's pretty freaking scary. This kind of goes with what I was talking about regarding patents the other day, is that there is a way to institutionalize these corporations to the point where, yeah, they may have some regulations on their own regulatory bodies that mean they have to enable competition to be possible, but they can mitigate it so much that they can ensure that the pie grows faster than the amount being taken by people entering into it, in a way. So they can basically guarantee themselves oligopolies, duopolies, whatever it may be. And that's pretty freaking scary to me. But that's just my thought. Anyhow, I think that basically covers the initial discussion here. I just want to get this out there. Get you guys thinking like, okay, what actually would be a sign of fascism, of this government and business, private business, being able to work together, having that crossover, that interaction, and at what point does that become fascistic? Is it only when it's super nationalistic, in which case, yeah, you know what? I guess Trump was a fascist because he was a nationalist. But like, what was the scale there? Is the elaboration there? And I'm just picking on Trump, but like, let's be real. Every other politician does all this stuff behind closed doors, probably far worse than him. I mean, freaking Biden flew his son out to China on Air Force One to make a deal, to make a private business deal. Like, if that isn't the government being used for a private industry purpose and giving someone an unfair advantage, I don't know what is. Anyhow, I just want to talk about this because I do believe in true free markets, and I want to know what you guys think. Where is the line? What would you say is your line between what you would consider fair regulation and, I would say, corrupt or fascistic type of government control or power over industry? What is too much for you? Is any too much? Anyhow, leave your comments below. I will talk to you guys later. Have a good one. See ya.